Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Hit It podcast. Very excited about this episode as Kennedy Hansen joins me in the virtual studio. Kennedy, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm so excited to be on this podcast. I think it's going to be fun. And yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Well, absolutely. We're going to unpack a ton of things about your skiing. You've been having a phenomenal year. But first, I want to start where you're at right now. I guess you're at Louisiana Lafayette and training to get ready for the Pan Am Championships coming up at this next month. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Unfortunately, Pan Am's is at the same time as Collegiate Nationals. However, I'll have another year of eligibility for Nationals. So I'm super excited for that. Collegiate Nationals is definitely one of my favorite tournaments for in water skiing. There's just nothing like it, and being able to cheer for your team and compete together is just something that you don't get like at a normal water ski tournament or even at a pro tournament. So yeah, I'm getting ready for Pan Am's. It's in Bogota in Colombia. I'm super excited. It's my second time making the USA Open team, so I'm super excited.
Very, very cool. A lot of moving parts here. And over the years, I've watched athletes try to balance kind of the collegiate scene as well as not only skiing for yourself as an individual, but representing the United States in a Pan Am. There's a lot of moving parts there. Tell us a little bit about how you've had to balance that through the year because you are a senior at ULL. You won't be competing in the national championships for this year for the Raging Cajuns, but you're going to postpone that year because of the Pan Ams going into next year. But that's a lot to balance because I'm sure along this journey of being a senior at Lafayette, you've had to ski in other tournaments and then run to a collegiate tournament, support your team. Tell us about that.
Yeah, for sure. I think now as a senior, I've definitely learned how to balance both skiing and collegiate skiing and like my own skiing, individual skiing. So yeah, as a freshman, it was pretty difficult because you're just thrown in here, and you're not skiing with a coach. We all coach each other. Um, like so, you have to go find when you can ski with someone after classes and within tournaments. So yeah, it's been tough, but I think by now I'm pretty much used to it, and I think it relaxes me a little bit more because I'm used to just going with the flow, skiing at a collegiate tournament, and then preparing for a pro event or something like that. So I think it definitely prepared me and made me more relaxed as a skier. And also at so many collegiate tournaments, we have like different boats. So I think yeah, it definitely relaxes you, and allows you just to go with the flow. So.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because water skiing is such an individual sport, but you have been at the top rank for so long. You've had the opportunity as a junior to compete on a team. And not every athlete gets that opportunity to compete on a team. So to go from that environment to a collegiate environment where it's all about the team and then still, obviously representing the United States at the Pan Am, tell us about how those experiences relate representing the US on one hand and then representing your school on the other hand.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, always, I mean, once you're on a team, you want to do best for the team, not only for yourself. So that's a huge thing. And you also want all of your teammates to do super well. So just being there for each of your teammates in a different way than you would like in a just a tournament that you're not on a team. Um, yeah, and it's hard to explain, but it makes the tournament a lot more fun being able to cheer on your teammates and support each other. Um, and I don't know, I wouldn't say there's more pressure, but it kind of feels like there is at some points because everyone is weighing in on you to do really good for the team. Um, so yeah, but yeah.
And it's an interesting dynamic being at a university that is on a roll, frankly. I mean,
Yeah,
winning national
also.
titles, right? They're on a roll right now where the recruiting happens internationally. So it's not just US skiers, but it's athletes from around the world. And so potentially it's kind of interesting to think you might be cheering for your teammate at a collegiate tournament, and then the next week you'll be at a Pan Am and you might be skiing against them because they're representing another country. Has that happened to you yet?
Yeah. Yeah, actually my best friend Violetta, she's on the Team Argentina, and she's also on the team here with me at UL. And we're actually both going to Pan Am, so it'll actually be
Okay.
nice because we could also watch collegiate nationals, but then we'll both be together at Pan Am, so we're not alone, and we can also cheer on our team. So I mean that's really cool. And then we also will be competing against each other in Pan Am. So it's kind of funny aspect, but I think it's actually really cool because yeah, it connects you and brings you together with skiers all over the world, which is yeah, it's it's really awesome.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. And collegiate skiing is such a fun place to be. And if any of our listeners have never been to a collegiate tournament, that is one thing you've definitely got to do. It is a completely different experience than your usual tournament on a weekend or even a regionals and nationals because of the camaraderie, the cheering, the excitement. Everybody gets painted up, and collegiate nationals is on a whole new level. They hand out awards for spirit. And so collegiate skiing is definitely something that is an unbelievable memory for me as being a former collegiate skier that I look back, I'm like, wow, I can't believe all the friendships I've made. And then to see them down the road, right? I mean, it's been 15 years removed for me, and a lot of those skiers are still skiing. So tell us a little bit too about how you're balancing skiing with your studies and where you want to go after. I guess your ride is through next year at nationals and you're about ready to graduate. Are you going to be off to grad school? Are you going to keep skiing? How is that going to work?
Yeah, so I mean, first I wanted to go into dental school and I was studying biology. And I recently changed my major to kinesiology and chemistry, and I'm planning to go to PA school. So I'll have to get in a few hours just working in the office, getting some experience, and then hopefully apply to PA school. Um, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I still definitely want to ski, but I know it's pretty flexible. Um, so yeah, and I definitely want to get some more education. So yeah.
Sounds good. Well, let's take a step back and talk about your career. It was cool because it brought back memories of. I was just doing some Google searches the other day of when you skied junior masters, skied so well there. I had the opportunity to announce you there. I've had the opportunity to announce you at other tournaments, and I was talking to you the other day offline, and you're like, "Well, originally, I think you're from Minnesota, right?"
Yeah.
And you were a hockey player. So how
Yeah.
does a hockey player from Minnesota become a water skier? Tell us about that.
Well, because of my parents mainly. My dad was a hockey player growing up, and also my brother was a big hockey player growing up as well. And my parents met water skiing just for fun.
Okay.
They never competed, and they both worked at a boat dealership. And so they met there, and then they just started to do it for fun, and then they started to compete. And then once they had my brother and I, they introduced it to it like we just did it for fun on weekends, like in the summer. Obviously in Minnesota you only have a 3 or 4 month summer. It's very short. So we would just always ski together, grew up skiing together, and then in the winters play hockey. So everything we did was very much all together and as a family. um, yeah, but I always watched my older brother. He's 5 years older than me, and he would always bring back medals and trophies from ski tournaments in Minnesota, and I always saw those. And I think he was the first one that really pushed me to get into skiing and want to be the best and get medals and trophies because he would bring these huge trophies, and I was like, "That's so cool." My older brother does it. He has all those trophies. Like I want to get those so bad. So I think he was the first one to really push me into skiing, and I always wanted to beat him. I always wanted to get his medals and trophies. Um, yeah, and then in the winter we would play hockey. My dad was the coach of our team, and I was actually the goalie. Um,
Okay.
yeah, I really loved it. But once we moved to Florida, um, I just mainly started to focus on water skiing. So
Sure, sure. Tell us a little bit about growing up skiing in Minnesota because Minnesota is a state known for lakes. I mean, there's plenty of water there. But was this a man-made ski lake or was this on open water on a public lake?
yeah, we lived on a public lake, so it was open water. We had a slalom course, but it would always get ripped out from fishermen or jet
Yeah.
skiers or tubers. So that's something we had to deal with. So then we would always trick around the lake. It was great for tricking. Did a lot of tricking, a lot of skiing, and then of course jump. I didn't start jumping till I was a little bit older. Yeah, but that definitely was a learning experience for sure. And then coming to Florida, where all of these perfect lakes, it was like a dream.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I'm sure the conditions were nice and smooth, skiing on a
Yeah.
man-made site in Florida. Talk to us a little bit about that because you really start to ramp up your skiing 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, and we're going to get into it in just a little bit that you have three pending overall records this year, right? So tell us about that trajectory. How did that happen, and who were your coaches? How did that kind of motivation to say, I really want to take this to the next level?
Um, I think it was I won my first national championships in Florida in West Palm Beach. I think when I was 10 or 11, I'm not really sure. In girls one, I think. Um, and after that, my parents thought like, oh, she could really do this. She could really be good at this. And obviously, I loved water skiing. Like, I loved it so much. I think if there was a contest of who loved water skiing the most as a kid, it would be me for sure. And so then, yeah, my family, they always wanted to move back to Florida. And so they decided we would move back to Florida, and we moved to Pensacola to ski watch. So there was like 5 man-made ski lakes there, and then 1 hour away is Corey Picos, and I skied with him a few times before we moved from Minnesota. And ever since I met Corey, he was always like very, I don't know, he always said that I could be really good, and he saw a lot of potential in me. And I always loved skiing with him. He was very funny and always made jokes, and I just really loved skiing with him. And so I guess we started skiing with Corey, and almost since then, I think I skied with him every day.
Wow.
Every day after school, throughout middle school, after school, we would drive over to see Corey, and ski with him. And then, yeah, pretty much from there, I didn't have any other coach. Like, yeah.
So making the commitment to be an overall skier, which your pending records are overall records, talk to us about that because it was funny. A couple years ago, I was listening to Matteo Luzeri's podcast, and he was talking about his experience growing up. And I think his dad had told him, if you're going to be an overall skier, you better like being at the lake. And I
Yeah.
would tend to agree with that. Now, for you, that's not a problem. You want to put your name in the hat of the person who loves water skiing the most. But talk to us in the audience about your commitment to overall skiing and what that takes.
Yeah, so overall skiing, as you can tell, you have to ski. You definitely, I mean, depends on the person, but you would like to ski every event each day. So that takes a lot of time. That's a lot of sets. You're basically at the lake the whole day. There's almost no way you can just ski 3 sets and leave. Like you usually have to wait for someone else to go in between you, depending where you are. So it's a huge commitment, and it's a lot of time. And you also have to have someone that wants to do that with you. So, for example, Corey, he was also very committed to watching me and coaching me and spending that time with me, which I appreciate so much because I couldn't have done it without him. But yeah, as overall skier, it really does take that extra. You have to go that extra mile and put in the work in all 3 events, or you're not gonna get to where you want to be. And I think a lot of people realize that, like, as they start doing 3 events, and they realize maybe they're better at one event, and they drop jumping or tricks or whatever. So yeah, it is a huge commitment, but I really do enjoy it. Um, yeah, sometimes I wish I could be a one eventer when I go to those slalom tournaments, and I just see them take one slalom set, leave, and then go do whatever they want for the rest of the day. It must be really nice, but yeah, there is definitely something special about overall skiing. Um, And yeah.
Well, it's really cool that when you moved back to Florida, that you had the ability to ski with Corey Picos, one of the best of all time to do it on a trick ski. But when I think of Corey Picos, I not only think of him skiing, but in the coaching sphere, I think of him with a cup of coffee sitting in the boat ready
Mhm.
to go. And he is like in the boat all day long. I mean, he is so
Yeah.
committed and he has run the path of multiple world records and been the best for decades. And he knows what it takes to be at the top of the game. So I can imagine outside of the actual coaching taking place, the training regiment he
Mhm.
knows the path. He's seeing where your skiing is. He knows the tournaments that are on the schedule. Talk to us a little bit about that aspect of training with Corey and how he gets you ready to compete at these tournaments.
Yeah, for sure. Corey really knows, like, I guess for some years I would practice more on tricks, so I would take 3 sets a day. Or when I was learning flips, I would do one slalom, a jump set, and then Corey would tell me to do hands, and then do hands again, and then do another flip set. So I think he really knows where it's needed, and obviously in tricks there's a lot of points, and that's also a lot of overall points. So I think he always knew where to put the time and where I needed the most practice, and he was really good at that. And also before tournaments, um, I would always just do my runs and do short slalom, like a short slalom set down the line and a few jump sets. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
That's really interesting. No, it's really interesting you just mentioned what you mentioned about a short slalom set as being an overall skier.
Yeah.
It's hard to probably put into words when you're training consistently day after day after day. It's one thing to get ready for a tournament, but after that tournament, there's always the aspiration to put more tricks in a trick run and go
Yeah.
up more slalom buoys, go more feet. But there's only so much you can do in a day.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you would agree with this, but I'm just going to throw it out there. But sometimes if you're working on tricks, for example, and you know you need to get another flip into your run, so you may take a handle run and then you know you're going to take a flip run. Is even going out just doing 4 passes in slalom, is that sufficient just to keep your rhythm instead of staying out
Yeah.
there for 6, 8? How do you balance that? Because slalom of all three of them can
Mhm.
really take a lot of energy out of you, especially if you have to go jump or trick. So I just kind of want to hear because sometimes we talk to a bunch of slalom skiers, they take a lot of passes. But when you're
Yeah.
balancing it with overall, it's a different way you have to train.
Yeah, it definitely is. Um, And I guess it changes every season a little bit of how I want to prepare and what I'm feeling, but it's really more of just a feeling. So I'm going to try to put it best in words. Like, I just really try to save my energy for a tournament because also in a tournament, you're not just doing 2 rounds of slalom, you're doing 2 rounds of overall. So that's 6 sets
That's right.
in a tournament. Um, but I guess leading up to a tournament, I'd like to do like a run in hands, a run in toes, and then maybe 4 passes in slalom, and then a few jumps, even if that. But yeah, I've definitely got to the point in skiing where I have skied way too much and way more than I should have. And I think that's something that you definitely have to learn and definitely have to learn to balance because you don't want to get injured and you don't want your body to be too tired all the time. And then that's not efficient at all. So I think when or knowing when to take a rest day and when to maybe not stall on that day and maybe just trick or maybe just ride your jumpers, not go over the ramp because all of that stuff is super hard on your body. And then I think it just makes your skiing go down. So yeah, it's just more of a feeling to me, honestly. And I think I've really got it down. And especially heading into a tournament, like heading into those like tournaments that you'll have 6 rounds of skiing. I like to take the day off before just to give my body a rest because it's really hard on the body.
Sure. Sure. Well, I want to one more point on that, and I'd like to get your opinion on this. And I think for overall skiers who are just beginning or aspiring, let's say they went to college, they fell in love with the sport, they want to do overall. really start gearing up, starting to train for it. One thing I've noticed is tricks takes a lot of time. It just
Yeah.
does, right? I mean, you're
Mhm.
just out there. A lot of people say, well, I'll go out there and ski for 20 minutes. I mean, people who are at the top of their game for trick have easily taken, hundreds
Yeah.
of sets that have lasted an hour, right? I mean, they've been out there learning new tricks, trying to perfect whatever they're going to perfect. One of the things that I've noticed when you're competing and trying to learn more tricks is if, let's say, you trick for 3 days straight without a slalom, and
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you decide to go slalom. Well, you've been tricking whatever it is, 18 miles an hour for 3 days, and then all of a sudden you go
Yeah.
off the dock at 28 off 34 miles an hour. Just the speed difference of how you're skiing, and it gets easier over time. But when you're first starting out, that can be a quite a bit of an adjustment. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Yeah, I definitely have. And I think all skiers have. If you take time off slalom or even jump, it's a little bit scary. You're like, are we really going this fast? Is this how fast I usually ski? Even sometimes in trick, I'm like asking my dad, are you going the right speed? Like all the time. So I guess it can be applied in every way, in every event. Um, yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. Let's talk about your records. Big year for you right now. I mean, these are all pending records, so you're probably just waiting for the email or the phone call or however they're going to
Yeah.
approve it and tell you that you've uh, broke these records. But talk to us about all three of these and how they've transpired this year.
Yeah. So I've been um like thinking about these records for a long time. I knew I could do it, and this year it finally all came together, and I'm super excited about it. The first one was in Arkansas, and I actually didn't think I was prepared or ready for it at all. But it actually turned out to be a super good tournament. Um, and yeah, that was after I broke the first one, I knew I could definitely do more. I definitely had more in me. And then I went to fluid, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
fluid was the next one. And yeah, that one I broke it a little bit higher in the first round and then a little bit higher in the second round. So I actually got two that weekend, which is really cool. Yeah, it was really cool to break it. And I still sometimes think, and I can't believe it because I've been thinking and working for this for so long. Also, it is my last year for under 21, so this is my last year to break those records. Um, yeah, definitely took a lot of time, a lot of practice, and yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that because the records, there's a record that you could go break, let's say in Arkansas. But
Hmm.
I would assume that there's also a record you could probably go break at Pan Am's. That's the tournament record.
Yeah.
Is there still a tournament record out there that you kind of see in your
Well,
sights going into this Pan Am?
I actually don't know. I don't.
You may
I
break it.
think,
We just
yeah,
have to announce
I
it when you
actually
do
don't
it.
know. I guess there obviously should be a Pan Am Open record, but since I'm skiing an Open, that might be a little
Gotcha.
harder to reach. So
Gotcha. So
yeah.
talk to us about your top scores with these overall records. The furthest jump, slalom trick.
Mhm.
Where did those land this year?
So the first record, I got 1 at 39 off. I jumped 151, I think, and tricked 94.30.
Okay. Wow.
And then the second record, I got 438, 96.30, and 159 in
Nice.
jump.
Wow.
So that jump really helped
Hmm.
boost it up a little bit. Um, and I think the other one was somewhere around the honestly, I don't remember
So
what
you
it was.
are, I mean, looking at those, especially in Trek, right? That 10,000 point barriers right there in sight, almost consistently, you're right there on an overall score. So I don't know what your personal goals are on that, but I would assume that it would be something into 39, 10,000 in Trick, and then over 160 in
Yeah,
jump would be the next step.
yeah, for sure. My best right now is 97.20 in tricks. And with a front, if I add front flip, it will be over 10. So I hope to do that by the end of this year. That would be really cool. And jump, yeah, definitely over 160. I mean, 159 is pretty close, so maybe 165. But I mean, water skiers always want more.
That yeah,
And in slalom, yeah, I'm pretty happy where I'm at. Anything in 39, I'm pretty happy about. So,
sounds good. Sounds good. No, I think that I won't be surprised when we read it that you do those goals that you have set out at all. Um, Talk to us a little bit about this. You're going into Pan Ams. You'll ski Pan Ams. Does that end the season for you at that point?
I think I'll have another tournament after that, but yeah, pretty much it's the last big tournament of the season.
Okay. And will you ski Moomba in spring or
Oh, actually, I have University Worlds in
okay.
February in New Zealand. I'm really excited for that. That's gonna be so fun. I've
That
never been
is
to New Zealand.
yes, that is really, really cool. Talk
Yeah,
to us a little bit about University Worlds. I remember 15 years ago when I was
yeah,
at ULM, that kind of started. But to go to New Zealand, I don't know the last time there's been a big tournament like that go to New Zealand.
yeah, for sure. I think they didn't have University Worlds last year, maybe because of COVID.
Okay.
And maybe I think it's been a while. So when they announced that, everyone was super excited. And obviously, if you're able to go, it is a far trip all the way from Louisiana, especially in February. But I mean, it's gonna be so fun. It's gonna be so cool. Also, being able to see teams from each country, like collegiate teams, because in nationals we only see teams from the USA. So seeing other teams is, I think, it's gonna be so cool. Um, yeah, that will be in February. So gonna be
Wow.
very cold training in Louisiana. Um, but yeah.
So February University Worlds. And then
Mhm.
will you go to Moomba after that?
The thing is, I think they're 4 weeks apart, so I might miss too much school.
Okay.
I think you would miss like a month of school, which I definitely wish I could do, but I
So,
don't think that
so
would be.
let me, wow, you are going to have an extended season next year, especially
Mhm.
because it's a world tournament year.
Oh
To, s-
yeah,
to,
also.
yeah, so starting in February at University Worlds in New Zealand and then ending it at
Yeah,
the World Championships.
yeah,
Wow, that's going to be we talk about this a little bit on the podcast. It seems like the season, which traditionally was always just the summer,
yeah.
has extended through collegiate skiing, but
uh,
a lot more international tournaments when especially when you start the year with Moomba have made the season longer. Talk to
yeah.
us about that progression and how you're able to balance that through such a because you're really only taking well, I don't even know how many months you would be able or if you could take a month off this year.
Yeah,
How do you look at that?
yeah, for sure. I guess you have to look at what's upcoming in the next season to determine how much you want to take off. But honestly, I think it's great. The longer the season, it's really cool. Honestly, I think that's so cool. And I think more tournaments, period, for water skiing is something that we really need. And it's just if we can get all the participation in skiers like that actually want to go, I think that's exactly what we need. Um, so yeah, I probably won't take more than 2 weeks off in the winter just because of Worlds coming up in February, because you don't want to lose too much of what you have already built from this season. Um, but yeah, I think this season the first pro tournament was in April for the Swiss Pro Tricks, and then my last tournament would be after in Pan Am. So yeah, that is a pretty long season,
Yeah.
and next season is gonna be even longer. Um, but I guess taking breaks when you need it, taking a week off in the summer or just before when you don't have any tournaments is definitely necessary.
Absolutely. As you get all of these experiences that you've traveled around and you've been in the United States, outside the United States, where is your favorite place to ski?
Mm, Hmm. That's a really tough question, actually. Because I've never skied at Moomba. Actually, I've never been to Moomba. I really do want to go. Um, Skiing in Europe, though, is really nice. I spent 3 weeks in Austria this summer and
Okay.
skiing there, and I really enjoyed that. So I'd have to say Austria. Yeah, I haven't skied too much in Europe or in other places besides the US. So yeah, in Europe is skiing and obviously at my home lake.
Very cool. Very cool. I think that's one of the probably under talked about things in our sport that is potential for everyone, that especially with over 35-year-old worlds and all of these types of things that are happening now, that you can literally go around the world on a water skiing tour and
Yeah,
ski in
exactly.
Europe and Africa now. So
Yeah,
um,
that. Yeah.
yeah, talk to us about that, because that was the first time we've seen that, and that was obviously kind of more on the slalom circuit outside of
Yeah.
overall skiing. But I mean, that was exciting.
Yeah, for sure. I think just in general what the slalom tour is doing, it's amazing and it's so cool. And all the athletes can go and travel and ski together and travel together and just ski at these tournaments. It's exactly what we need. And as many people that can go and have the ability and time to go, they should definitely go. Um, yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's exactly what we need in the sport. And if people can continue to support it and keep it going, yeah, that's awesome.
Very cool. So we know that Pan Am's is coming up. We're definitely going to be cheering for you and Team USA there. And then University Worlds in February. And then not only the Worlds next year, but you also will be participating in the Collegiate Nationals next year.
Mhm.
Where do you see yourself going after that? What is your future goals, and how do you want to balance your career aspirations along with water skiing and your goals there?
Yeah, so I don't know. I have some like a few goals about skiing that I would want to do before I ever finish, and that is to be world champion, of course. I think everyone wants to be like an open world champion. That would be honestly so amazing. And I would like to break the open overall world record one day. I really, yeah, that would also be so cool. But I think that will take a few years. But
Very
uh,
cool.
yeah, I don't know. Those are my main two goals. Maybe win masters one day. That's also super
Okay.
cool.
Yeah,
So, I don't know.
absolutely. Absolutely. And it's interesting now because where you're heading and your scores, right? You're at almost 10,000 points. At 160, I can just foresee in the next couple of years you'll be challenging the 170, 180 mark, and then slalom you're on the way up there. It's foreseeable even in tournaments that are specialized like the Masters, you could punch your ticket through in all three events. I mean, you've skied there as a
Yeah,
junior for overall, but
yeah.
would that be a goal to try to kind of do
Oh
what
yeah,
Joel Pullen has done and punch your ticket all three events?
yeah. Of course. 2 years ago, I skied in trick and jump in open masters. So definitely one day I will be skiing all three events. And
Awesome.
that would be really cool.
That is awesome. No, it's amazing to think about those aspirations, and you're right there. I mean, you're just right on the upswing, breaking these records, and I hope all of them get approved, and it's going to be amazing to see. When you look at women's trick skiing right now.
Hmm.
Women's trick skiing, the scores are just crazy high. And
Yeah.
I wanted to get your perspective on that because as an overall skier, tricking is absolutely vital to the way that overall is scored. Where do you see women's trick skiing going, and what tricks are going to kind of make or break the top podium spots to make it
Yeah.
in the top three at these tournaments?
So I definitely see women trick skiing just continue to rise because what ladies are doing, it's incredible, and they're doing more flips, doing more advanced tricks. So I think the top tricks that you would need to be on the podium is definitely front flips, and half jacks, which is the inverted front flip, and along with like speed in hands and speed in toes, that's definitely going to put you on the podium. Yeah, and I think more flips and more advanced wake tricks will definitely put you on the podium. Because I think the run that would put you on the podium, let's say even 5 years ago, is not the same run
Right.
that's going to put you on the podium, let's say next year at Masters. They're doing more front flips and they're going way faster and even doing more advanced toe tricks like toe line fives and toe line back to backs, just like the men. So, yeah, women's tricks right now is so good, and I think definitely the event to watch.
Yep, absolutely. And as an announcer, I will tell you that tricks is one of my most favorite events to announce. The
Yeah,
speed is picked up so much, the skill level is at an all-time high, and it's really interesting. We used to look at, well, do they have six flips in their run? And then two of those flips would be back rolls. But to what you just mentioned, the back rolls are just
yeah,
starting to go away because you need two or three different variations of a front flip just to make the top podium. Talk to us a
yeah.
little bit about how you look at your run and tricks that you might be working on now that you know you're going to have to put in to get to that next level.
Yeah, for me right now, I'm kind of maxed out at my run, so I would need to put in front flip, which I have been landing, but in the run it's a little more difficult, but definitely need that for next season. And also reverse front flip definitely gets me on the level with the other girls. Um, I think those front flips and taking out, as you said, the back rolls um, definitely puts you up a little bit higher and gets you a higher chance of making even the finals. So even especially though if it's an overall tournament, you kind of want to have a good safety run to do. So always in the
That's
back of
right.
my head, I'm like I'm an overall skier, so I want to get a good overall score. But definitely if it's like the Masters, then you definitely just have to go for it, or you're not going to make finals.
That's right. You know, it's interesting. We had Erica Lang on the podcast, and Erica specializes in tricks. She also wakeboards, but that was what she had mentioned to us outside the overall conversation, which
Yeah,
changes the way you think about a trick run. But in tricks itself, if you're just trying to make the finals and then a podium spot, I asked her, I said, "Do you have multiple runs you go to a tournament with?" She's like, "No, my run is
yeah,
my run. I'm going for it no matter what,"
yeah,
which makes it super exciting from a spectator point of view that
yeah.
the runs we're going to see are going to be way up here. It's not just runs to maybe I make the cut.
Yeah, definitely you have to go for it. Yeah, there's no way you're gonna make finals. You just have to go for it, especially at a big event like that. You know everyone is gonna go for their best run, so you have to do your best to compete with others and just go for it.
Absolutely. And then when you flip it to the other side with overall, you
Yeah,
get two 20-second passes that were pretty good. You stand up, you're going, okay, check.
yeah,
Go
yeah,
slalom or whatever events next,
yeah,
usually jump slash, check, you know. Talk to us a little bit about that because usually overall, traditionally, at most tournaments, will always end with jump.
yeah,
So if you can, I guess, get some margin in your skiing or get ahead of the pack a little bit. And even if an overall skier can jump, let's say 175 feet, you're going for the 160. You can
yeah.
almost do that math in your head going into the last event.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, if it comes down to the last event, I generally like to know how much I would have to jump or what I would have to jump to get this place or win, or like break the record, for example. So I think going into slalom, generally slalom or trick is the first event. It just depends, but slalom, I mean, you just kind of go for it. I feel like slalom is it's not really like tricks that you can just fall. I mean, of course you can, but I think slalom is a little different. Like tricks, um, I always just try to stand up my runs the first round and then go from there because going into jump knowing you have a chance to win is way better than oh, I fell in trick, so I messed up in slalom. Now I have to jump really big. I don't like to do that. I would rather just slalom and trick good and consistent, and then see what I can do in jump.
That's awesome.
I'm a little behind in jump. I'm a little bit younger than the other girls that I compete with in overall. They jumped like 180 or 190, so
Right.
obviously can't compete with them in jump, but yet, but and for overall, definitely going into the jump event, knowing you have a good Solomon trick score is definitely something good.
Very, very cool. No, totally different game when it comes to overall skiing than one event skiing. And frankly, I mean, I love overall skiing. I mean, I
Mhm.
really do because you know you're going to ski a lot going into the weekend. That's one thing. But there's something about getting momentum and
Mhm.
starting off
For
with a
sure.
good event and then just feeling the momentum in the next event and then it's like, let's just cap this off. And I'm
Yeah.
sure a lot of times when you're breaking these records, you start to get the feeling like I'm on my way to do this. I just need to
Yeah.
finish what I started.
Yeah, for sure. I completely agree. There is definitely something about momentum going into it. Like if you're having a good roll in slalom, it goes into tricks and you're not even thinking like really that, oh, I have to do super good in tricks or I have to do super good in jump. You're kind of just moving with it. You're skiing good, you're confident, so you're just doing the going through the motions, and I think that's sometimes how, yeah, overall is for sure.
Awesome. Well, we are definitely going to be cheering for you for the remainder of the year and then the early start in February going into
Mhm.
2025. Kennedy, this has been a wonderful podcast. I wanted to give you the opportunity, just a handoff here if you want to thank anybody or where people can find you.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you so much for having me. And I want to give a big shout out to my sponsors, D3 Skis, Team Germany Sports, Ravenol Oil, my parents, and Corey Picos and the whole Pico Ski School, and ULL Water Ski Team. Thank you guys so much.
Well, thank you, Kennedy, and have an amazing Pan Am. Go Team USA. And again, we're going to be cheering for you.
Thank you so much, Tyler.
Well, thank you. And until next time, we're signing off.